Hi, my name is Justine and this is my sewing journal. So my journal entry for today is the first ever jacket that I've made. Hello again, I hope everybody's been well. I'm sorry that I have been absent for a while. My aim this year is to post something every 2 weeks. But unfortunately, life happens and it has just been hectic. I feel like I woke up, it's the first week of March, and then now I blink, it's the last week of March. But it has been a good hectic, I would say, because I did have time to catch up with friends. The weather is getting better, so a lot of my friends are inviting me to go out, and I did. So that was good, and I did see some family. I also traveled for work, so it has been a little bit busy. Anyways, I am here to share my first ever handmade jacket, the name of which I'm not sure how to pronounce. If you remember my last project, which was the Blanca jumpsuit or flight suit, I was so happy with the results, and that really gave me the confidence to tackle a little bit more complicated or advanced patterns. So I thought it's time to tackle outerwear. I landed on this Lolle jacket. Actually, now that I say it out loud, I say Lolle and I also think of lollies. So we'll just call this a jacket, a VikiSews jacket. So moving on, I was looking at the VikiSews website when they had a sale on, and I found two jackets that I really like to make. So I bought two outerwear patterns. The first one is the Pilar coat and the second one is this jacket. The pattern is called LOL or Lolly jacket. I'm really not sure how this is pronounced, but please correct me in the comment section. VikiSews is a Russian brand that makes contemporary sewing patterns. So this pattern is a semi-fitted jacket with a straight cut. There is a yoke on the back and welt pockets with sewn-in ends on the front. The left front features a patch pocket. The shirt collar has a separate collar stand. The long shirt sleeves are made up of two pieces, with a slit on the elbow seam. The cuffs have a stud button and buttonhole closure. The jacket fastens with a separating zipper at the center front. The bottom edge of the jacket features an applied waistband with two tabs that have a stud button and buttonhole closure. All the seams are top stitch. And lastly, this jacket is designed to be a below the waist length jacket. Since we're already moving into spring, I thought it would be better for me to make this jacket rather than the coat. What I really like about the brand is they make patterns that are contemporary but also timeless. For this project, I wanted to use something neutral, but not boring, so I went with this black printed denim. This fabric is from Fabric Godmother, and this is part of their Time to Sparkle collection. This fabric has mystical prints on it, which features stars, crescent moons, and suns. This is 98% cotton and 2% elastane, so it has a little bit of stretch. This is a medium weight denim and has a wonderful soft handle. This fabric retails for £18 a meter, and I bought a meter and a half for this project. Since I made the Blanca Flightsuit, I thought making an outerwear would be a natural progression in terms of difficulty. I also thought that this jacket pattern would be just the right level of difficulty. There are several things that I haven't done that I can try with this pattern. First is how to create welt pockets, and then how to install a separating zip and fabric pattern matching. Just a side note as well, if you haven't used a VikiSews pattern, this will be a very good one to use when you want to learn a skill. Their tutorials or their instructions are very clear. The instructions are clear and there are photos for each step. Unlike the big four pattern designers, you always think, or well, I think sometimes there should be an instruction in between step one and step two, for example. There seems to be an assumption that you would know what is the in between instructions between step one and step two, which is not the case for VikiSews instructions. So this brand has sort of become my go-to if I want to learn a new skill. For my height and size, the pattern suggests I need 1.7 meters of fabric. I only bought a meter and a half of the denim fabric, and that was enough. To make this jacket, you also need interfacing or fusible tape, one separating zipper, six buttons, although I only used four in the end, and top stitching thread. At first, I thought I wouldn't have enough fabric to pattern match, but surprisingly, I did have enough to try and match the front patch pocket and the left and right bodices. For the front pocket, I took my time lining up the design and sewing it in. The prints on the fabric are large, so it wasn't difficult to match the lines. I hand sewed the pocket in place first before sewing it on the sewing machine. Sewing it by hand ensures it won't move when you top stitch. I was really determined to get this right because it's a prominent feature of the jacket. Now for the top stitching, I use black thread instead of cream for a contrast top stitch because I wanted it to be seen but not compete with the fabric design. The cream lines of the drawings are about the same thickness as a top stitching thread, so I didn't want the top stitching to compete with it. The jacket might end up looking a bit too busy. I still use top stitching thread because I like how it makes the garment looks more professionally made. Now, the second challenge in making this jacket is sewing the welt pockets. Not to be too dramatic, but at this point when I was cutting the slit, this was really nerve-wracking. This was the point of no return. If I botched this, then I'd have to buy at least half a meter of the fabric again. It wasn't easy cutting through three layers of fabric. You'd want your scissors to be sharp, but then you'd have to make sure that you're really controlling the scissors. You don't want to accidentally cut more than you need to. I somehow managed to cut and make the first welt pocket, so you think the second pocket will be easier. It wasn't. I was a little bit confused on how to do the same thing just on the left bodice. I think really my main takeaway from this project is to take my time. I figured it out and now it's time to fit the jacket. The first fitting was okay. I was concerned that the jacket might be too boxy or maybe too short, but it was actually just the right size for me. The pockets were also nicely placed, and I like that the pockets were deep enough. I'll definitely be using the pockets. The second challenge I faced was shortening the zip. That means cutting the zipper to the correct length and then removing this end piece and reinstalling it on the shortened zipper. You might ask why I did not just buy a zip in the right length. I would have if it was available. I think the pattern designer knows this will be a problem, so the instructions on how to shorten the zip are included in the instructions. This was really time consuming. I had to apply the right amount of pressure to take the metal bit off. If I clip it too hard, I might break it. But then if I clip it too softly, then I might not get it off. I was also worried that I might lose that metal bit once I actually have taken it off the zipper. Taking the metal bits off was one thing, but installing it on the now shortened zipper was another difficult thing. This isn't exactly sewing, but I guess it is part of making a garment. I knew I had to carefully insert the zip for this jacket as it's an integral part of the design. I was worried that it wouldn't be straight and that I might have to redo the zip. I didn't anticipate, though, that it would be the shortening of the zip that would take the longest time. After what felt like an eternity, I finally managed to put the end pieces back on. My fingers were really sore by the end. There's another sewing technique I've learned from this pattern. It's called thread tracing. It was mentioned in the instructions on how to trace the welt pockets. To trace the welt pocket lines from the pattern, you use tailor's chalk on the wrong side of the fabric. Now, to make it visible on the right side of the fabric, you trace it by doing a running stitch using a light colored thread. Now you've made precise lines on the right side of the fabric. I thought that was a nice trick, so I used the same technique to mark where the front pocket should be. I'll definitely keep this technique in mind for future projects. In general, sewing this garment was not as hard as I thought. There were certainly more steps than I anticipated, but it wasn't as difficult as I envisioned. It helped that the instructions were clear, and it also helped that the fabric is a stable fabric. I like that this is a medium weight denim, so it did not get too bulky in places where you have multiple layers of fabric, for example, around the collar. I really just had to follow all the tips and tricks from the instructions. If the instruction says to hand baste, then I should hand baste because it does make sewing the garment easier. The only thing I've done differently is how I finished my seams. I don't have an overlocker and I don't like using zigzag stitches to finish seams. So I used bias binding to finish all my seams inside the jacket. This jacket is unlined, so I think it's worthwhile doing this step so that it looks nice inside and outside. Okay, now that I have the zipper installed, I can kind of breathe easy, although I still have the buttons to contend with. Admittedly, I don't find it as daunting now that I have this new sewing machine. I just have the sewing machine manual on hand because I still don't know how to sew buttons and buttonholes by heart using this new machine. The pattern requires 6 buttons, 2 for the cuffs and 4 for the waistband adjustments. I have 4 silver buttons from my stash that I want to use for this project, so I decided to just have 2 buttons around the waistband instead of 4. I figured I don't really need the waistband to be adjusted that much, so 1 button on each side would be enough. Plus, the silver buttons I have in my stash goes perfectly well with the metallic silver zipper. Actually, they're not from my stash, but from my mother-in-law's box of sewing haberdashery that she gave to me. They look like Versace buttons, so I really wanted to use them. And I do love them on this jacket. The only thing that bugs me when I look at the buttonholes are the white threads fraying around it. It is what it is, I think. It's just the nature of the fabric. My other slight worry about this fabric is that it seems like the fabric color will fade quickly. The fabric already looks faded after just one wash. Hopefully, the faded look will just add to the charm of the jacket. And here it is. I'm proud to show my first ever outerwear. I'm happy that I took my time with it. I find that when I make something in a rush, I'm usually not happy with the result. With this one, I kept on reminding myself to slow down. It really mattered when I was pattern matching. Granted, it's not precise in all places, but it's not too bad in some. It's still a bit chilly to be wearing a light jacket, but spring is in the air and I cannot wait to wear this jacket when I'm out and about. I hope you enjoyed today's video. In the meantime, happy sewing. Bye!